There are certain things the South African government is doing now, or trying to do now, that we should be moving in the opposite direction of, and definitely not doing. There's something called the Pan-Africanist Parliament. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Right, let's do this. Let us do this.
Mr. President.
Hello, let's do this. Hello.
Mr. President.
Look, you see.
Mr. President.
You see now. You see now.
Mr. President.
Mr. President. No, you can't do this. You can't do it. If you don't want sitting, I'm adjourning the house. I'm adjourning the house. Point of order.
Useless organization, a nothing organization really. It's part of the African Union, and it owes 28 million for an unpaid electricity bill. The Pan-Africanist government is billed as a parliament of representatives from all the AU countries. It's funded by the AU, which means it's funded by all the different countries and some Western European organizations. And its headquarters are in Midrand. Is meant to represent all the nations of the AU in a parliamentary setting, sort of like the EU. My friends, the EU is a bad idea. Why do you think it would work for Africa? It's a horrible idea that we should not be part of, we should not be hosting them, and we should actually, in actual fact, leave the AU, the African Union, as well. These are very useless organizations.
We do not care.
And now this same organization, which is supposed to be this flagship organization with a parliament that represents all these African countries, owes eskom millions in electricity bills. It can't even pay its own electricity bills.
Let us do this.
Mr. President.
Hello.
How is an organization that can't even pay its own electricity bills anything worthwhile for the continent, and a continent that needs serious work and serious leadership? The Pan-Africanist government states that it's there to consult, to advise, and to oversee budgets and to spread awareness about the policies of the AU. So basically, this is a useless organization that owes millions in unpaid electricity. What a waste and an incompetent organization that we should definitely not be part of. And as a matter of fact, South Africa should leave the African Union and leave this parliament completely and kick it off our land, because this thing is a drain. They can't even pay their eskom bill. A reminder that you can get a digital comic book emailed to you every single month when you become a member on our Buy Me a Coffee page. Something else we should have never started in South Africa is a lottery.
Ongoing investigations by the SRU indicate that staff and the former board of the NLC have siphoned off at least 1.4 billion rand from the fund.
The National Lottery Fund is battling for its life now, and the board of that National Lottery Fund is looking at being dissolved by members of parliament. Spearheading this is someone called Mzwandile Masina. I don't know if you remember him. He was the Deputy Minister of Public Enterprises, and he was famously the mayor of Ekurhuleni, a failing mayor, obviously. And behind him is someone called Melusi Gigaba. Now, these two gentlemen, with some other MPs, are trying to form a bit of a coup to get the executives of the National Lottery Fund fired.
Now, the National Lotteries Commission has a new board. Members of a previous board whose tenure expired in March last year have been embroiled in scandal after they allegedly took funds meant for worthy causes to fund luxury homes and cars. Famous people, including actress Terry Petto, have also been implicated in diverting money through dodgy lotto grants. The new members include the former head of the Asset Forfeiture Unit, Willie Hofmeyer, the former Director General of the Department of Trade and Industry, Lionel October, and the former head of the Competition Commission, Teminkosi Bonakele. This board replaces the four-member board appointed in March last year for a one-year term, chaired by Professor Barney Patiana.
My suspicion from how the story is shaping up is that they do not want things being dug up or exposed if they have already been dug up and exposed in the media, from all the corruption of the National Lotteries Fund, which has gone through 44 investigations in 2024 alone.
Stop it.
Get some help.
This fund has been corrupt from the beginning.
Well, someone who's been raising the alarm about possible lottery corruption for years now is journalist and fact-checking expert Raymond Joseph. He's written a number of exposés on the matter, and he joins me now. Ray, you've been absolutely dogged in your determination, to get to the bottom of this issue, and really a credit to your profession. I wonder what your reaction was when you heard that the National Lotteries Commission offices were being raided this morning. What were your feelings?
Well, a combination of jubilation, relief, and I feel vindication because I've been attacked. My family's being attacked. I've been defamed, been court cases, and So, I felt good. I can't lie.
Now, we understand that they were seizing documents relating from the period 2014 up to November this year.
They're supposed to run the lottery, collect all that money, and fund some charities or whatever and some other organizations. This is a bad idea. This is one of those things South Africa should have never been part of. We should have never undertaken the formation of a lottery. It's a complete waste of time. It corrupts society. They pin their hopes on this very vague idea of putting money in this pot every week and playing this game. This is in a country where people cannot spare the sort of money that they're using on this thing week in and week out. Not only does it give false hope, it's actually corrosive to society in this way. It gives a false premise of how to make money. You should probably save that money, get a skill, invest some of that money. Winning the lottery is not a life plan. However, many people have been pulled into this, and for the government, it has been a place where they can loot, allocate money to NGOs that they're friendly with, that are run by their friends, and they can also loot. That's why they're now trying to dissolve the board to get a new board that will not reveal the things that have been happening over there. Barney Pityana, who's been running that, is now under fire from members of parliament, and they're trying to push him out, and a certain executive called Jody Skoltz, and they're trying to push those people out. The corruption that has been happening there will not come to light. All of this trouble, all of this mayhem, all of this corruption, all of this looting, in my view, this thing should have never existed in the first place. We should have never started a lottery in South Africa. In my view, we should actually close the whole thing down. Of course, after revealing all the corruption and who was involved in naming names and sending those people to jail, use that as the premise to close the entire thing down. Our country doesn't need a lottery. We don't need to run that sort of game and have that sort of system in place. We have enough ways through companies, individuals, churches, and other organizations to fund NGOs. And as a matter of fact, if we focused on building an economy and not so much on the lottery and programs for NGOs, we would be just fine, and most people would be able to take care of themselves with something called a job from a thriving economy. Get rid of the national lottery right after you expose all the corruption that's been happening there for the past couple of years. We now have a course on Teachable. It's for boys between the ages of 10 and 18, about 12 men from the Bible, where we teach about manhood, masculinity, and becoming a man. Check it out.
Well, it's not good news for motorists in Gauteng. If you incurred debt while the e-tolls were operational, you will still have to pay.
You can't cancel the debt because it was not incurred illegally. It was the law of the country. And the fact that people decided not to adhere to that law of the country by not paying for whatever reason, that's the issue we're dealing with. So it was not illegal to pay for e-tolls.
And there is more. If you paid before the e-toll tag beeps officially stopped, you will not be getting your money back.
The third thing we should have never been a part of was started in South Africa, something called the e-tolls. Now, all these e-tolls were shut down on the 12th of April 2024 after years of people not paying in protest because they did not agree to it. Now the bill is due and an amount of nearly 20 billion rand needs to be paid. And it's going to be paid and is being paid. And this thing was completely avoidable and didn't need to start. There was always that discussion about how can we improve our roads, perhaps a fuel levy or other methods. They chose the e-tolls because they could then loot out of it and generate a lot of money out of a dodgy deal. An e-toll system that was never asked for, that no citizen of Gauteng ever agreed to. And they were trying to milk more money out of citizens who were already tight. That's why no one paid, and now it's shut down and failed, but they still have those outstanding bills, all from something that was never supposed to have been started in the first place. The fourth thing we should have never started in South Africa and should definitely get out of is social grants.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Social grants are ruining South Africa in so many ways that I've covered in many videos before this because I hate social grants. But here's another one, just in case you thought social grants were going well.
Police Minister Senzo Mchunu says 868 abandoned babies were found alive over the past 6 years. 372 babies were abandoned and found alive in Gauteng during this period, followed by KwaZulu-Natal with 251 babies, while 98 babies were found abandoned in the Eastern Cape and 52 in Mpumalanga. The Free State, Northwest, Western Cape, Limpopo and Northern Cape registered fewer cases of abandoned babies.
Between 2029 and 2024, 800 babies were abandoned in South Africa. 800 babies left next to dustbins, in toilets, and that's not counting all the babies that were murdered, buried, are stuck in fridges, and were flushed down the toilet. Those are real stories of real things that happen in South Africa. But the police minister is reporting that 800 babies were abandoned between 2029 and 2024 because young people are having babies out there, trusting in a social grant, and when the reality hits and the panic hits and their family starts reacting and the boy is like, no, not me, I'm not the one to be a father to your children, and that reality starts to sink in and she can see that she doesn't want that child either, she takes a decision to abandon this poor child. Now the baby is innocent, and this innocent little kid, this innocent little South African, is left in some bathroom cold and alone, and will walk through life probably never knowing who left them and who abandoned them. All encouraged by a very bad system that incentivizes bad behavior, where in the end, some poor child is abandoned and has to walk through life wondering why and how. And you know what? A lot of the time, people who grow up like that don't get the answers. And if they do, they're completely unsatisfactory, disappointing, and heart-wrenching. We should have never started social grants, and we should leave them immediately. They do not encourage human thriving or human flourishing.
You're watching News Prime. Let's conclude the hour then with this conversation. There is growing outrage over Eskom's proposed 36% electricity tariff hike for next year. Many are calling for the National Energy Regulator of South Africa to reject this request as cash-strapped consumers battle with the high living costs. NERSA's decision is expected in December.
The fifth thing we need to move away from is this idea that Eskom can get money to run out of the citizen. They keep trying to do this. They're now wanting to increase the tariff by 36% going into 2025, and into 2026 by 12%, thereafter into 2027 by 9%, and each time collecting over 400 billion rand. This idea that Eskom can run and get the money to operate, to pay its debts, and to meet its other obligations by getting money out of the citizen is stupid. The citizen doesn't have the money to pay. People are battling to pay as is. We should be moving away from that sort of model of trying to get money out of the consumer or the customer. We should actually be moving in the opposite direction of reorganizing Eskom in such a way, with all the technicalities accounted for, the end result should be this. We should not be looking at renewables. We should reorganize back to coal, hydro, gas, nuclear, so that electricity is as cheap as possible for the end user and for any business functioning in South Africa. That should be the goal. These people just have the wrong goal. They're going in the wrong direction.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
Electricity, if you want to get this country onto its feet, should be as cheap as we possibly can have it, and as effective and as efficient and reliable as we possibly can have it. And the government should be working hard to do that, not trying to squeeze every last cent out of the payer. People, yes, can pay if the whole thing is subsidized, but at the end of the day, they should be paying as little as possible, because the thing is so efficient, so well run, so well maintained, and so cheap that the country is booming. We have too much power that we can go back to selling it to neighboring countries, and we can be a powerhouse economically. That's the direction we should be moving in. We should leave this idea of trying to get the money out of the consumer and go back to the idea that it should be cheap and as efficient and as well maintained and as reliable as possible for the end user. That's the direction we should be moving in. In conclusion, there are 5 things South Africa needs to move away from immediately. The ridiculous Pan-Africanist parliament, a joke. Get rid of it, move it out of Midrand, move it to another country like Zimbabwe. The National Lottery Commission. South Africa shouldn't be running a lottery. It's a degenerate form of false hope that is in fact pointing at the wrong solution for the right problem. This will not help people. It does not encourage people to grow in the way that people can actually grow their riches and their wealth. Get rid of the lottery. South Africa doesn't need a lottery. We don't need to follow every trend that's out there. The third thing we need to move away from is e-tolls, and the people who were responsible for it should be brought to book and to account. We should not have started this in the first place, and it should not move anywhere else or reappear anywhere else in this country. It's a foolish idea with better solutions, like a fuel tariff that we could use, rather than setting up a highly expensive, highly technical, and worthless toll system that is obviously a money-spinning scheme for politicians trying to squeeze more money out of South Africans. Fourth, social grants. We need to move away from that. If 800 babies are being abandoned in this country, we have lost our minds. And the fifth thing we need to remember to move away from is this idea that eskom can survive by getting more money out of the end consumer, who is already very tightly squeezed by every other cost in this country and its failing economy. We should be making eskom move in the direction of highly subsidized, highly maintained, highly efficient, highly reliable, and extremely cheap electricity that's on all the time, that we can sell to other countries and be a great tool for businesses and the economy in general. Our politicians have no shame. That's why their ideas are so stupid, so selfish, and so shamelessly poor and corrupt. That's a saying. The only shame is to have none. Blaise Pascal. I recommend we move away from such stupid ideas that are overly technical and just something we saw someone else do. We should look more specifically at what is best to do in South Africa. What will work best for our people? What will work best in this land? It's definitely not a lottery. Definitely not e-tolls. Social grants has proven to be a hellscape and a death cult. Pan-Africanist Parliament is useless, and so is the African Union. We should leave that immediately. And eskom should shape up and get organized and be driving at cheap, affordable electricity. The case is closed, my friend. There are things we need to move away from in South Africa if we are to be a serious people and a serious country. We do not need to be faffing about with stupid ideas that make politicians rich and in the long run do nothing really good for the citizen. Let me know what you think.
Runa,
Remember not to forget that you can get access to a short course on our Buy Me a Coffee page. Just follow the links in the description, and if you become a member, you'll get the course and a digital comic book emailed to you every single month. If you can't buy us a coffee or get the membership, just join our mailing list. The link is in the description, and you can get one digital comic book emailed to you.